The courtroom was packed, rows of spectators seated in intense silence, the air thick with anticipation. The dim overhead lights buzzed softly, casting a dull glow over the polished wooden benches. At the front of the room, Judge Richard Holloway sat elevated on his bench, tapping his fingers impatiently against the desk. Well into his 60s, he had silver hair and deep lines etched into his face, marks of years spent scowling at defendants. To him, this was nothing more than a routine case. Another face, another name, another person wasting his time. But what he didn't realize was that today would be different. Today, the individual before him was not just another defendant, and today his arrogance would cost him everything. At the defense table, Danielle Carter sat composed, her back straight, her expression unreadable. She was dressed professionally in a crisp navy blue suit, her black hair neatly pulled back into a bun. Her presence was commanding, yet Judge Holloway didn't even bother to notice. "Where are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments below." To him, she was just another black woman who had landed herself in trouble. A smirk tugged at the corners of his lips as he glanced down at the case file. He hadn't even heard her speak, yet he had already made up his mind. This would be simple. Letting out a small chuckle, he shook his head. Well, he mused loudly enough for the entire courtroom to hear. Another entitled individual who thinks the law doesn't apply to them. A few jurors shifted uncomfortably. The prosecutor, a younger man in his 30s, pursed his lips, but remained silent. Danielle, however, didn't flinch. Judge Holloway looked up at her. "I assume you're here to claim you were wrongfully arrested? That this is all just one big misunderstanding." Laughter rippled through the room. But Danielle's lips curled into the faintest smile, not the smile of someone nervous, but of someone who knew something no one else did. The prosecutor cleared his throat, adjusting his tie. "Your Honor, the defendant, Miss Carter." Judge Holloway waved a hand, cutting him off with amusement. "Let's not waste the court's time. Why don't you tell me why you think you're special?" Danielle finally spoke. Her voice was smooth, even. "With all due respect, Your Honor, I'd prefer to stick to facts rather than opinions." For a brief moment, Judge Holloway's smirk faltered. He didn't like the way she carried herself, too poised, too unshaken. Most people in her position fumbled, stuttered, begged. But she sat there like she owned the room. "Facts," he echoed mockingly. "All right, Miss Carter. Let's hear your facts." Danielle inhaled slowly, then reached into the inner pocket of her blazer. The bailiff instinctively stiffened. Judge Holloway scoffed, ready to make a remark about reckless behavior, until she pulled out a small black leather case and flipped it open. For a moment, the entire courtroom was silent. Inside the case sat a golden badge, its bold, unmistakable lettering gleaming under the dim lights. Judge Holloway's face drained of color. The prosecutor's pen slipped from his fingers, clattering onto the table. A few jurors leaned forward, eyes wide in disbelief. Danielle placed the badge on the table, like a royal flush in a poker game. "My name," she said, her voice steady and clear, "is Special Agent Danielle Carter, United States Secret Service." Judge Holloway's jaw clenched. He was stunned into silence. Danielle let the weight of that moment settle before continuing. "And before we go any further, I think it's important to address the fact that my arrest was not only unjustified, but a direct violation of federal law." The judge swallowed hard. Danielle reached into her bag again, this time pulling out a sealed government document. She slid the folder toward the bailiff. "This," she said, "is an official complaint from the Department of Justice. It outlines the numerous violations committed by the officers who arrested me, including the falsified report that landed me in this courtroom." Judge Holloway's hands gripped the edge of his desk so tightly his knuckles turned white. "You see, Your Honor," she continued, her tone calm yet commanding, "the officers who arrested me never bothered to check my credentials. Instead, they assumed that because of the color of my skin, I must have been doing something wrong." The prosecutor's face was now a mix of shock and fear. He frantically flipped through his own documents, as if trying to figure out how he had missed this critical information. "And now," Danielle went on, "I find myself sitting before a judge who, instead of ensuring a fair trial, chose to mock me before hearing a single shred of evidence. Her words crushed the room. The courtroom was deathly silent. Judge Holloway looked like he had just aged 10 years in mere minutes. His arrogance had evaporated, replaced with sheer panic. Danielle adjusted her blazer, locking eyes with him. "This isn't just about me," she said firmly. "This is about a system that allows people in power to abuse their authority without question." She leaned forward slightly. "But today, Judge Holloway, you questioned the wrong person." The prosecutor jumped up. "Your Honor, in light of this new information, the prosecution requests that all charges against Miss Carter be immediately dropped." Judge Holloway's lips pressed into a thin line. He looked as if he wanted to sink into his chair and disappear. Clearing his throat, he muttered, "Case dismissed." The gavel slammed down, but for the first time in his career, it wasn't his authority that silenced the room. Danielle gathered her belongings and strode toward the exit. But just before stepping out, she paused. Turning her head slightly, her voice rang loud enough for everyone to hear. "Next time," she said, her words slow and deliberate, "think before you laugh." And with that, she walked out, leaving Judge Holloway sitting there, pale, humiliated, and fully aware that his career was over. Because after today, the world would hear about this. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.